Nikola Tesla is often considered to be an underappreciated genius, although he's now one of the most famous names in history of science, from Elon Musk's company to some conspiracy theories that even you might actually believe. Tesla has become a household name. Today, we're going to take a look at why he was such an important figure and why his ideas continue to be shrouded in mystery.
Born in 1856 in modern-day Croatia, Tesla was a remarkable student. From a young age, he was able to memorize logarithm tables and compute complex integrals in his head. Although most people are familiar with his more famous inventions, such as the AC generator and the AM radio, what's not so widely known is just how incredible these inventions actually were, how they work, and how they ultimately led to conspiracy theories about world-ending superweapons and free energy.
There are two main types of current: alternating current, or AC, and direct current, DC. The alternating current generator uses an alternating magnetic field to generate electrical energy. As you can see, the rotating magnet exerts a variable force on the free electrons in the wire, causing them to oscillate. The difference between alternating and direct current is that in direct current, the charge flows in just one direction, whereas in alternating current, the direction is constantly changing. Tesla was a pioneer of alternating current, and this technology was immediately put to the test in the War of the Currents in the late 19th century.
The War of the Currents saw Thomas Edison, who was championing DC as the future of electricity, go head-to-head with Nikola Tesla's AC technology. Tesla arrived in America in 1884 with 4 cents to his name and the letter of recommendation. He actually began by working at Edison Machine Works, improving DC generators. By this point, Edison had already become a household name with his invention of the phonograph. But Tesla believed that the true future of electricity lay with AC, which Edison dismissed as, quote, utterly impractical.
Tesla left his job with Edison, who had treated him poorly, and eventually went to work for George Westinghouse. Westinghouse Electric was a competing electrical company, and Westinghouse saw the true potential of Tesla's breakthrough with alternating current. He paid Tesla for his patents and hired him as a consultant. Having made his fortune from the railways, Westinghouse was able to trade at a loss in order to eat into Edison's market share. Once he incorporated Tesla's innovations, he was able to transport electricity across far greater distances using transformers. Edison, on the other hand, had to have a power station within a mile of his customers. So Westinghouse was beginning to take over the rural areas, where DC simply wasn't a cost-effective way to provide energy.
Even as Edison began to lose his grip on the electricity monopoly, he refused to see the advantages of AC. He launched a smear campaign, senselessly killing stray dogs and famously Topsy the elephant, in an attempt to make AC seem unsafe. In response, Tesla went on his own PR tour, passing extremely high voltages through his own body in order to prove that AC was safe. In the end, Edison's company ended up merging to form General Electric, which is now a huge multinational conglomerate. General Electric was less opposed to AC power, and in 1893 they were once again competing with Westinghouse Electric.
The Chicago World Fair drew 27 million people to the city over 6 months and became a hugely important historical event, so deciding who got to power it was naturally a pretty big deal. Once again, Westinghouse won and AC proved itself to be a truly groundbreaking idea. Now let's take a look at the science behind AC and see why it came out on top during the War of the Currents.
It's probably a good idea at this point to get rid of the notion that AC is simply better than DC. They're just two different types of current. One can't just be better than the other. They're just different. So why might AC be better in certain circumstances? Let's think about power lines. Have you ever wondered what voltage power gets transferred at? Typically, it's on the order of hundreds of thousands of volts. You'll notice that that's a lot higher than what comes out of your socket. Why bother transporting energy at such high voltages if we're just going to have to bring it back down to a safe voltage when it reaches your house? It all comes down to energy loss.
Remember the equation power equals current times voltage? If we need to transport a certain amount of energy per second, we can raise the voltage if we lower the current by the same factor. The point of this is that high currents lead to lots of energy being lost as heat, since power can also be defined as P equals I squared times R, where R is the resistance in the wires. So power is transported at high voltages to reduce this resistive energy loss. The problem with DC is that it cannot effectively be transformed from one voltage to another. This is because transformers rely on an alternating current to work. This made Edison's energy transfer extremely inefficient.
It's also about how we generate our electricity. Most of our energy sources use turbines in some way, and AC current generation requires a spinning magnet, so our use of AC goes hand in hand with the way we generate our energy. All the power that you get in your sockets is actually AC. Even the light bulbs in your ceiling operate on AC with a frequency of 50 Hz. Now this means that they're actually flickering on and off 50 times a second. That's too fast to see with the naked eye, but using a slow motion camera you can see it if you film inside. Of course, there are some applications where we need direct current. For example, the transistors in computer processors need very clearly defined voltage levels to represent ones and zeros. Obviously, this isn't possible with AC because the voltage level is always changing and reversing direction.
Alternating current led to the world being lit up and gave everyone the ability to own household electrical appliances. It allowed us to place power plants outside of cities, giving us cleaner air, and it directly led to the development of radio and wireless communication. So we really do have a lot to thank Tesla for. He created one of the biggest investment bubbles in history and brought electricity into the modern age.
AC went from strength to strength after the World's Fair. In 1896, power from Niagara Falls was successfully harnessed and sent to Buffalo, which had been a childhood dream of Tesla's. This was so successful that by 1920, a quarter of America's electricity came from hydro stations. In later life, Tesla's mental state sadly began to deteriorate. Instead of becoming one of the world's richest men off the back of his technology, he ultimately died penniless, alone, and insane.
So how did this happen? After the War of the Currents, George Westinghouse was in serious debt. He asked Tesla to temporarily lower his royalties from the AC patents. To everyone's surprise, Tesla instead tore up the original contract on the spot and relinquished all his royalties so that Westinghouse could stay afloat. Westinghouse gave Tesla a few $1 million in today's money for the rights to use his technology forever, but Tesla's patents are estimated to be worth over $300 million. Over the next decade, alternating current became the dominant form of electricity in the world. Given this, it's no stretch to say that Tesla would have become the richest man on the planet had he held on to his royalties or even just given them up temporarily.
From here, it was mostly downhill for Tesla. By the end of his life, he was living in a New York hotel room with no money to his name. His room and meals were paid for by Westinghouse. He continued to have incredible ideas, but they were no longer taken seriously after he was declared clinically insane and could no longer show any proof of concept. He developed an aversion to women wearing earrings and touching people's hair. He also became obsessed with the number 3 and would only stay in hotel rooms which were a multiple of 3. He also believed that he could talk to pigeons and that aliens had contacted him in Colorado Springs.
Even at the age of 81, Tesla was still trying to make a scientific contribution. He said he had a dynamic theory of gravity, although we don't really know much about it since it was never published. He died of heart failure in his hotel room in 1943, and this is where the conspiracy theories tend to stem from. It's worth saying at this point that these theories don't have a shred of convincing evidence to support them, so you shouldn't really believe anything we're about to tell you. But anyway, around the time of his death, Tesla was rumoured to have been working on a death ray. Government officials did seize a lot of his work after he passed away. Remember, this was during World War II, around the same time that the Manhattan Project was going on. So an immensely powerful weapon like that would have been invaluable. However, an electrical engineer from MIT concluded, after sorting through his work, that the death ray didn't exist, at least not as a workable design.
But perhaps the most famous conspiracy theory is the free energy suppression theory. Now this isn't specific to Tesla, but it's probably closely tied to him because of his work on the Tesla Tower. According to this theory, numerous scientists over the years have actually found ways to provide free energy, and the government has suppressed them for fear that the entire energy sector would collapse. Of course, this can't possibly be true because it would violate the basic conservation laws of our universe. But it is interesting to see where it comes from. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower was his idea to transmit energy over long distances without the use of wires. Instead, he would use the Earth's ionosphere to transmit waves across the globe that could be received anywhere. These are called Zenneck waves, and we won't go into too much detail here because we could make a whole separate video about this. The important thing to know is, why didn't it work?
The reason why Tesla's vision wasn't brought to life is because his idea was based on pumping current into the Earth that would oscillate at the Earth's resonant frequency. The idea was that this resonance effect would cause the amplitude to grow larger and larger until people could essentially plug into the Earth to access it. Sounds pretty nice, right? The reason why Tesla didn't manage it is that charge oscillates in the transverse direction, whereas the solids and liquids within the Earth oscillate both transversely and longitudinally. But who knows what might be possible in the future, as there are people actually trying to make this work right now. Tesla's financial backing from JP Morgan got cut before he could finish the project, which is probably where a lot of this mystery comes from.
There's no doubt that Tesla was a genius and a visionary. Although those words get thrown around pretty lightly now, they really do apply to him. As well as the AC generator, he also experimented with X-rays, vacuum tubes, transistors and wireless radio well before they became widely used and hugely important to our daily lives. As for the conspiracy theories, just bear in mind that they're conspiracy theories, that's all.
We hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please consider leaving a like and watching one of our other science videos. Thanks for watching.